Assalamu alaikum. This is Kulsum Zehra, your mentor for the course of English Grammar. In this lecture, we'll learn the concept of active voice and passive voice. Let's start with active voice. What is active voice? Active voice means that a sentence has a subject that acts upon its verb. When a subject of the sentence performs the verb's action, we say that the sentence is in active voice. Let us look at the formula. It is comprised of the subject, verb, and an optional object. For example, Jake, which is subject, kicked is the verb, and the ball is object. So, Jake kicked the ball. It means that Jake, which is subject, is performing an action in this sentence. Now, let's have a look at the passive voice. A passive voice means that the subject is the recipient of verb's action. A sentence in the passive voice, on the other hand, when the subject is acted on by the verb. Its formula is comprised of subject, some form of verb to be, plus past participle of the transitive verb, plus an optional prepositional phrase. Like the ball, which is subject, was is a form of to be, kicked is the transitive verb, and by Jake, which is prepositional phrase. It means that here the action is being performed on the ball. So, what's the difference between active voice and passive voice? Basically, in active voice, with the use of active verb, we say what the subject does, or we talk about the action that the subject performs. For example, my grandfather was a builder. He built this house in 1935. Or, it's a big company. It employs 200 people. In both these examples, we talk about the actions that these subjects are performing, which are building the house and employing 200 people. While on the other hand, in passive voice, with the use of passive verb, we say what happens to the subject. For example, this house was quite old. It was built in 1935. Or 200 people were employed by the company. So, in both these examples, we are basically talking about what happens to the subject. Another major difference between active voice and passive voice is that in passive voice, usually who or what causes the action is often unknown or unimportant. For example, a lot of money was stolen in the robbery. So here we are not talking about the subject, or the subject is not very important or is unknown. Similarly, is this room cleaned every day? We are not talking about the subject in both these sentences. But if we want to talk about the subject, or who or what causes the action, we usually use by. For example, this house was built by my grandfather. Or 200 people are employed by the company. So, in both these examples, we have used the subject, but for that purpose, we use by. Let's discuss how we can make the active voice or passive voice of different sentences. Starting with the present simple, we can say that for present simple, we use first form of verb with s or es. For example, somebody cleans this room every day. But in order to make the passive voice of present simple, we use is, am, are plus the second form of verb as. This room is cleaned every day. In the same way, to make the active voice of past simple, we use second form of verb as. Somebody cleaned this room yesterday. And to make the passive voice of this past simple, we use was, were plus cleaned. Like, this room was cleaned yesterday. To make the active voice of a present perfect tense, we use has or have plus a past participle as. The room looks nice, somebody has cleaned it. While to make its passive voice, we use has been or have been with the past participle, as the room looks nice, it has been cleaned. Similarly, to make the active voice of a past perfect tense, we use had plus a past participle, as the room looked nice, somebody had cleaned it. And to make its passive voice, we use had been with the past participle, as the room looked nice, it had been cleaned. The active voice of a present continuous tense can be formed with is, am, are plus first form of verb and an ing. For example, somebody is cleaning the room at the moment. And to make its passive voice, we use is, am, are plus being plus a past participle of the same verb, as the room is being cleaned at the moment. And to make the past continuous active voice, we use was, were plus first form of verb and ing, as somebody was cleaning the room when I arrived. And to make its passive voice, we use was, were plus being plus past participle, as the room was being cleaned when I arrived. Thank you. For more videos, do subscribe the channel.